what we do is that we don't like to be the only investor in a company. We want to have other people around the table because I keep telling my entrepreneurs and they don't want to listen. It takes more time and more money than you think it will take. Sure. And so when it comes time to people writing checks, I don't want to be the only one at the table to write a check.
And who are some of those kind of preferred partners? Do you have?
Well, I have the Atlanta Technology Angels here in town, and then I have a number of VCs that I have good relationship with. That the Mosley, the Total Technology Ventures, Tech Operators, and Kinetic Ventures. That I do deals with. I have one or two out of town VCs that I have done a number of deals with.
So, speaking about a town, this town feels relatively insulated for money, and it always interests me that there aren't more externally active forces in Atlanta, and probably part of that is Sig is the godfather of the investment, and has some early pick on it. Is that?
Well,
what's your thought?
I think what it is that we have a tendency here not to probably have as many entrepreneurs and many deals as you have in the Valley or in Boston or even Austin, and therefore your VCs tend to go to where there are more deals, more opportunities. And while they will cherry pick here, we haven't found anybody who really wanted to create an office here that think they can really find enough opportunities.
So this is more of an angel town than a VC town?
Yeah, but you look at Mosley, they have done a great job of building a reputation and flying deal, but they also covered the entire Southeast.
Right.
And like the people out of Boston feel they can cover the Southeast out of Boston, so they have not seen the need for putting somebody locally here.
Sure, it's the old time zone conversation probably most of the time, right?
Right, yeah, because basically venture people like to be in 2 hours, particularly of an early stage deal. So
yeah, unless you're Ron Conway and you've just got the tentacles you can reach to
right.
Boston or New York or Chicago. I mean, for a long time he didn't want to do deals east of the Mississippi, but you see him in Groupon and a lot of really hot plays.
Right.
So speaking of Groupon, this town pretty famously is MSA, it's ISS, right? It's very B2B town. But then you see things like Scout Mob pop up, who are in kind of that same general space as Groupon. It's a offer-based system. They've got an interesting revenue model, but it's a very B2C play. What's your thought on those companies in this town? Are they destined to take outside money, or would a guy like Sig actually look at something like Scout Mob?
B2C companies are very difficult to get funded here in Atlanta. We are definitely a B2B community. I have actually looked at Scout Mob, and I just can't quite get there. So you can look at something like an e-rollover. E-rollover is probably a combination of B2B and B2C. So I have done some B2Cs, but not that many of them. I just find that it is not a good town for those kind of companies.
And is it because the right people aren't here, or is it what you talked about the SaaS business model for a subscription revenue, somewhat the same in a B2C play?
Well, I think it's more that the investors here have more trouble getting comfortable with the consumers and how they really are going to buy things. Because B2B, you can try to figure out what the market is going to do. B2C, you never know what the consumer is going to do. You don't know what he's going to buy. What he buys today, he might not buy tomorrow.
Sure. It could be as fickle as what's popular on YouTube this week.
That is correct.
Interesting. So it sounds like you would kind of lay that at the foot of the investor to say, we just kind of skew this way, and if you're skewing the other way, then good luck to you. The Godfather's not going to lead you around.
Well, it would be a rare occasion for me to lead one of those deals.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, there's a fair amount of good, funny urban legend stuff about Sig. The whole secret Sig thing, I love the story Lance tells about making up a website, and then you busted him one day over lunch.
Yeah, it was just purely by accident because somebody had told me about the website, and I went on and I saw it, and so, I had no idea who had done it, and Lance and I just happened to be having lunch one day, and I knew he was very much into all of this kind of things, so I decided I would ask him just see what he knew about what might have happened. And that is when he had to confess that he had done that, and so, but it's great. I keep it up, and
Yeah, I think I read his post back the other day as we were getting ready to have the conversation with you, and I think he cops to being your webmaster now.
Right, yeah.
When Sig needs changes, he just calls Lance Weatherby at the ATDC and says, "Hey, change my website."
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, but he did it because Imlay does not have a website. And the reason we don't have a website is because we just didn't want to get a lot of junk, and we knew we would get more junk than we already get. So we chose not to do one, and he would just, he knew a lot of people gave me a hard time about it. So he created one, it worked out well.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I think the one line that cracks me up on the site is, if you don't know how to get a hold of me, you shouldn't be talking to me.
Yeah.
Hey, that's probably about the truth, isn't
well,
it?
in this town, yeah. Particularly, about that was true for the last 5 years, particularly.
Yeah, and then the other famous one is the T-shirt. I've actually heard rumors you were wearing. Sig said no.
No, yes, actually they gave that to me at the Startup Lounge one night, and they didn't think I would put it on, and I went in the restroom, put it on, and wore it for the whole night. Had my picture taken and published with it, and I have 5 of those in my house.
Oh, there you go. So, and that's, I think the story goes, those were, Sig said no to leading my round, so essentially I went nowhere, right?
Yeah, unfortunately that did happen a number of times.
Yeah. And then the very complicated ruse of the Wi-Fi cat.
Oh, yes.
Speaking of Startup Lounge, kind of greatest hits.
Yeah, well that one even caught me by surprise, because I thought the Wi-Fi cat was an actual company, and I was looking forward to the presentation. And it was just that morning that I found out it wasn't for real, and that I had been duped along with everybody else, and that I would be included in the presentation. So
that's good. You can always kind of trust Scott Burkett
to
have some fun and keep things interesting.
Right, and I think that particular one was great because it did kind of break everything up and got people really enthused again. So,
yeah. So speaking of Startup Lounge and events, and there are, you could go to 2 events a day probably in this town and still only hit 40% of them. Did you guys, in your investing, kind of your new capital points, ever run across somebody at an event and just go, you know what, you're it, I want to do that deal? Or is it always kind of them coming to you in a very structured way?
No, I have met people like at Cap Ventures and things like that I have followed up with to look at. But most of the time, I probably knew about them beforehand anyway, but I might not have met them to those events.
So the town's done a pretty good job. I know the couple of times we've been out raising money, I would get very quick advice to say, you better show this to Sig, and you don't want to be, Sig doesn't want to be number 4 in line to see something.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see it early on, so you don't like to be surprised by deals in town. But